Good afternoon and welcome to my next segment on drawing techniques and also photography. In this lesson I'll be covering two areas, one of which is a photography exercise and another of which involves color pencil techniques. But in this clip specifically, I just wanted to provide some tips on the photography aspect of it. So for any of my 4-Hers out there listening, or if you're a parent of one of my 4-Hers, just spread the info along and I hope this will be helpful. This would come from an area in the State Fair catalog called Health, and it would fall under section 769 as healthy foods. It is described as taking one of 5 photographs that focus on healthy food or meal choices, and this is just a simple example to show for that. And part of the reason why I chose oranges as a focus here is because oranges have a very interesting texture on their peel. So in appearance they're just interesting to look at, and their bright orange color alone is also eye-catching. So I just wanted to keep it simple for that reason. And also when it comes to the drawing aspect of this lesson in the next segment, oranges will be a good starting point if you're a beginner, because of the fact that there's not a whole lot of detail in them, and they're just primarily one color anyway. So I thought I would stick with it for that reason, and also as a way to be different from the Apple tutorial I provided in the previous clip. But anyway, what I did in this case was take several snapshots of different angles of these 3 oranges, and I picked one that looked the most appealing visually. And again, getting back to how it's described in the catalog, I had the option, or when I made this example, it was to encourage you to see that there is the option of doing just 1 photo or 5, or between 1 and 5. And I just chose 1 just to have this example to show. But I did take several shots of it though, just to sort through them and find the right picture that looked good. And that's what I would encourage you to do as far as any advice that I can give you in regard to photography. Even if you're just intending to show 1 photograph, the chances are likely that if you just take 1 photo, then it may not be as good as it could be. So usually after the 2nd or 3rd photo, you'll notice that you're a little bit happier with the next 2. So I would encourage you to take several and sort through them and find which ones, or which one in this case, would look the best. Now, just a few things to point out in regard to the aesthetics of how a picture should look. For one thing, I'm no photography expert, and I will be honest with you about that. It's just not my specialty, so I'm not going to overwhelm you with a lot of scientific aspects of a camera, as well as lighting, and give you a lot of terminology that's hard to comprehend in 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm just going to sum this up by saying that in regard to cameras, for instance, it doesn't matter really what camera you use. Even if it's just a cell phone, that's fine. The only thing I would recommend if you're using a cell phone is to print it on a smaller, if you're when you're printing the picture, print it as a small image, like a 4x6 or a 5x7. It's just going to show up better that way. Because of the way the camera is designed in the phone, it's not at the same quality as one of the larger cameras or one of the more high-tech cameras. Beyond that, lighting, no matter what kind of camera you use, is always going to be your ally. So when it comes to taking pictures, make sure that you are first of all taking those pictures in daylight, if at all possible, unless you just have some high-tech lighting in your house for nighttime pictures, like fluorescence, anything like that. Standard lamps and that sort of thing don't really provide the quality that is as nice as it would be as it would be if you had direct sunlight coming through a window or something in the middle of the day or in the day in general. So even when taking pictures indoors, I would recommend that you take them in daylight. If you don't have access to good lighting, I would set your display up next to a window where that natural light will be coming in, and that way you can capture all the highlights of the objects or items that you're trying to capture, and that enhances the cast shadows that will be beneath them. So you'll just get nicer effects if you do it that way, if you're taking pictures indoors. In regard to taking pictures outdoors, I would recommend doing so in a shaded area, and that is if it's in the middle of the day when the sunlight is more intense than it would be, say, at sunrise or near sunset. And I started to say that if you're not taking pictures in the shade and you want to take pictures in direct sunlight, I would recommend, as well as directed as far as kind of a general rule of thumb, I would take those pictures 1 hour after sunrise or 1 hour before sunset for the best lighting. The sun is not as intense at those hours, so just keep that in mind. In regard to taking a good picture with balance, first of all, I chose 3 oranges here because it's eye-catching to see an odd number of items in a picture. It's actually more eye-catching to see an odd number than it is an even number. So think of odd numbers as being 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, okay? Items and those numbers are going to look more appealing to you. So I chose 3 here just to keep it simple and to show how that is the case. I have it all divided up with these lines that are going horizontally and vertically, because that's for what is known as the rule of thirds. I intentionally didn't want to put this display of oranges in the center of the picture because I wanted to offset it a little bit, and that's where the rule of thirds come in. There's 3 columns in 3 sections or 3 rows, set up kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. And as you can see, the oranges are more so in the second and third column of all 3, and there's not as much showing in the first. But with that said, there's not too much negative space on this side, nor is there too much overcrowding on this side, because I've allowed some margins around the oranges there. So this is the simplest way I can describe balance when it comes to the aesthetics of a picture that you take. If you have any more questions for me in regard to photography, I'll be glad to provide you with any information that I can in regard to cameras or in general on how to take a good picture. I can at least do some research for you and see if I can find some expertise somewhere that I might not be able to provide in the moment, because again, photography is not my expertise, but I can provide you basic concepts, which is pretty much all you need as a starting point as you train yourself to take pictures. So anyway, with that said, this is just some insight on the photography aspect of the lesson. In the next segment, we will begin the color pencil process, so stay tuned for that.